Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate everyone taking time out of their busy schedules to attend today's webinar. My name is Andy Rodham, and I'm the co-founder of RevNote. RevNote is a powerful yet simple to use tool that enables your students and researchers to read, organize, and produce high quality work. My talk and demonstration today should just last approximately 20 minutes. The webinar is hosted on Zoom, so at any point, if you want to ask any questions, please just post them to the Q&A. I'll try to address them as we go on or address them at the end. If you'd like to talk further about how you could use RevNote at your university or institution, please start a chat in Zoom or feel free to email me. Let's start by taking a look at the 3 reasons then why your students might want to use RevNote. The first reason your students might want to use RevNote is that it can help reduce the risk of accidental plagiarism. I'm sure you're all aware of the statistics that in the UK, each year, between 2 to 5% of all cases end in alleged plagiarism. This places a huge burden on you and your colleagues, not to mention a huge level of stress on the students themselves. RevNote can help your students reduce the risk of plagiarism by preserving their research sources from start to finish, giving them a full audit trail of their academic process. In addition to helping your students avoid accidental plagiarism, it also helps them develop good research practices, which brings us to the second reason. Your students will want to use RevNote as it can help them organize their reading more efficiently. With the information overload that is the world of today, it is quite easy to be. RevNote can help your students confident in reading across a much wider range of sources. RevNote not only keeps track of sources themselves, but more importantly, it can help students to manage the information that they discover buried within those sources. So along with reducing the risk of accidental plagiarism, your students will enjoy feeling on top of their information, giving them more time and space to critically think about their own work, and hopefully achieving better grades. The final reason that I'm going to talk about today is that RevNote can help your students remove the guesswork out of creating citations. I can remember reading those 2 words in my own studies as an undergraduate. Students can certainly feel a pang of panic and fear in their stomachs, feeling a little lost in a new system that they haven't quite yet fully grasped. RevNote's suite of tools can help your students cite correctly. And this, along with avoiding the risk of accidental plagiarism and organizing their reading more effectively, makes it the 3 reasons that your students will want to use RevNote. So let's start by taking a look at how RevNote delivers on these 3 benefits with some practical demonstrations. We'll start by taking a look at the RevNote Highlighter, which is a Google extension that sits in the Google Chrome browser. Let's start by considering how students can capture information from a web page as part of their research. Clicking on the RevNote icon, will actually save a full copy of the web page, including all of the relevant citation information needed to create a full citation. RevNote is a cloud app, so this article, along with the citation, will be accessible from any Google Chrome browser that your students log in with. You'll also notice that the RevNote icon has actually turned green, indicating that the web page has been successfully saved. Now, whilst saving web pages may form a large part of your students' research, RevNote also allows your students to directly save and annotate PDF files. This allows them to have all of their research in one place. Again, clicking on the RevNote icon will save a full copy of the PDF and all the citation information is also saved. Your students will now be able to access this PDF from any browser that they log into. One common scenario that students will come across is that of having many browser tabs open at the same time. This is especially true in the discovery stage of any research, where the reader is far more willing to follow links down the proverbial rabbit hole. Your students may recall which articles they have read, which articles are half read, and which articles are unread. However, there's also a strong chance they may not. Your students will want to use RevNote as it helps them keep track of which articles are saved, helping them feel more confident about reading from a much wider range of sources and being much more adventurous during the discovery phase. Let's have a look at what this might look like. As your students click on each tab, they can immediately see from the state of the RevNote icon whether the page is saved or not. When a page is in fact already saved, clicking on the icon will show all of the current citation information relevant to that web page. Another common scenario that students will often come across is that they may initially believe that they are loading a web page or PDF for the very first time, whereas in actual fact they may have in fact read it before. I know this is something that happened to me repeatedly in my own research, and in a similar talk I gave just 2 weeks ago at UCL, one of the PhD students commented that she had the very day before nearly reread an entire paper before realizing that she had in fact already saved it. So just to run through a quick example, if we open a new tab and input a URL, on loading of the URL, you can actually see that the RevNote icon has immediately notified us that in fact this article has already been saved to our database. In continuing to understand how RevNote can help students keep on top of their reading and their research, we can now look at how students can use projects akin to a digital folder to create buckets for their different subjects or research areas. For any saved source, clicking on the RevNote icon will bring up the citation information. You can then select a project and brings up a list of our previously created projects, and simply clicking on one attaches this article to that project. A common scenario is that students may find themselves not being sure which project an article actually may belong to. Alternatively, they may feel that an article should belong in 2 different projects. Using RevNote, this isn't a problem because any article can be placed in as many projects as they require. Working with sources and citations in RevNote is only half of the true power that your students would have at their fingertips. By using the annotation tools available with RevNote, your students will be able to organize their information to an even greater level of granularity. They will be able to organize concepts by topics or by themes. They will find it easy to compare ideas and develop their own critical views. So let's take a look at a simple example. Let's assume that your student has come across this Wikipedia article. They decide to save the article and place it in their fake news folder, or project, sorry. Clicking the annotate button will activate the highlighter tool. You'll now see that the web page has actually been stripped of all content that is not part of the article, so i.e. it stripped the navigation and it stripped the adverts. As your student scrolls down the page, they can create an annotation simply by using the mouse to highlight any text and generating an annotation. Once your student has created an annotation, a list of labels will appear down the right-hand side of the screen. These labels can be used to categorize the annotation. They can be used to indicate the significance of a section of text. Some useful strategies here might be to develop a system of labels that split a subject into smaller themes. Perhaps it could be a series of research questions, or perhaps just a way of reminding oneself to come back to a specific annotation or to come back and dig up further sources. You'll find it simple to consider ideas and conclusions from a far wide range of sources. And later in the demonstration, you'll see how your students can actually use labels to assist in the writing process. To attach a label, we simply go to the label sidebar and click on the label, and it is now attached to this annotation. Each annotation can have as many labels as required. Your students will also find that RevNote can help them with their critical reading skills. In addition to categorizing their annotations with themes, RevNote also encourages students to add their own thoughts, conclusions, and questions to each annotation. This can be achieved by adding comments. So in this example, we'll just ask ourselves a simple question to follow up with, to remind ourselves when we come back to this annotation that we still have some work to be done. So far, we've only looked really at how students might make annotations and notes on web pages. But with the RevNote, your students are actually able to make notes on PDFs in exactly the same way. So as with web pages, we can actually scroll the PDF and highlight some text to create an annotation. So yet again, by sending all of these to our consolidated repository, regardless of whether it's from a web page or a PDF, the information is gathered in the same database. Your students will find that RevNote can help them stay organized during the reading process, and like this, gathering information from a wide range of sources, regardless of whether they be web pages or PDFs. Now let's take a look at how this organization that we've developed during the reading process can actually help in the writing process. So now we're going to take a look at the Google add-on cited. This is developed as a Google add-on to help your students in the writing process. Basically, it's a Google add-on that allows your students to access the information that they've already captured in the previous reading process. For the purpose of this demonstration, let's imagine that your student has started to draft an outline in a Google Doc on a project called Fake News. They will use this outline to structure their thoughts and organize their research, maybe inserting ideas, citations, and annotations as needed. When they first open the cited add-on, they can select to insert a citation or insert annotations. In this case, let's assume that they select Insert Citation. This loads a list of citations that exist for all of the sources that they have saved in their library. As your student has already organized their research into projects, they can now simply select a project folder, and this will bring up a list of just the citations within the Fake News project folder. In addition to accessing the citations, your students will also have access to all of the annotations that they have made as part of their research. And this is one place that RevNote starts to become extremely powerful. Switching to the Insert Annotations view, this now brings up a list of all of the annotations made upon the sources stored within the selected project, i.e. all of the sources within the Fake News project. When we were discussing the highlighter tool earlier during the reading process, we looked at how labels could be applied as a way of helping students structure their reading. We're now going to take a look at how your students can actually fully utilize the organization as part of their outlining and writing process also. So if we start by using the filter option we can filter by the labels that we've created. So in this case, we're going to filter by the fake news and social media label. You can now see that we're only displaying the annotations that actually have the label fake news and social media. And I must point out here that this is regardless of which source they came from. So this is just simply pulled those annotations regardless of whether they came from web pages or PDFs, and regardless of which source, but it's pulled them into the same place to help them in the writing process. This will help students feel more confident about gathering information from a far wider range of sources, and will also hopefully help them see which areas or which parts of their research are potentially lacking. In order to access the full text of each annotation, your student can simply click on the annotation, and this will now just display the full text of the original annotation. Now that all of the annotations are at the fingertips of your students, it's easy to insert any annotation into the Google Doc as a quotation. So if we select this second annotation, we can simply click Insert, and that will insert the text into the Google Doc as a quotation. Now, whilst it's not the purpose here to overly encourage students to include too many direct quotations, it is, however, a way to instead encourage them to curate their research, make decisions about which conclusions and authors to include in their work. Potentially, as they build up this outline, to then go back and remove or paraphrase some of the direct quotations. Alternatively, instead of inserting the annotation, we could simply decide to start creating our own paraphrasing whilst reading the annotations, and then merely insert the in-text citation. And we can do this simply by clicking on the Cite button from the relevant annotation. Your students can therefore start to feel confident that they're citing their sources correctly and concern themselves with the quality of their ideas and their writing. We are now drawing close to the end of this demonstration. And one key area, however, that we have not touched on is actually the RevNote workspace. The workspace is actually the central repository for all of the sources and annotations that your students might make. Although we don't have time to cover all of it today, we could take a very quick look at this. And in fact, if we use the links in the Google Doc, each link next to an annotation will take us directly to that annotation within its original source. So as you can see here, this is actually loaded up the RevNote workspace, which is the main web app. It's gone to the relevant project, which is the fake news project, opened the source where the annotation came from, and actually scrolled to the correct position within that source. This, of course, is a way to let the students fully appreciate the context of any annotations that we want to come back and have a look at. But also, you can see from this that this is also a way for them to review their annotations, or all of the annotations that they make, and decide whether they need to in fact find further annotations or sources. Hopefully, as we've seen from today's demonstrations, your students will want to use RevNote because it can greatly reduce the risk of accidental plagiarism. It can help them read far more effectively, and it encourages them to use proper citations. So that does actually bring us to the end of today's webinar. I'd like to thank you, of course, everybody for attending. If you would like to learn more about how RevNote might work at your institution, please leave a comment now through the Zoom chat, or certainly send me an email at andy@revnote.io. This Zoom webinar will now remain live until 3 o'clock, and I will mute my microphone whilst I respond to any individual chats, and any that I don't get to, I will certainly respond via email. You should expect to receive an email next week sometime that will include a URL to this a recording of this webinar, and so that you can review any of the material and discuss it with your colleagues. I will also include any answers to common questions that pop up today, or any other relevant information that wasn't covered. Once again, thank you very much for your time today. I hope you all have a fantastic afternoon. Thank you very much.